A single mother stood under the harsh lights of a busy Nashville supermarket, gripping a worn wallet that held nothing but fear. At 28, Rachel Evans carried the weight of survival alone. Her daughter Lily needed special formula to stop her pain. But when the cashier read the total, Rachel's heart crumbled. I have to put this back, she whispered. A heartbreaking apology no mother should ever make. Impatience filled the line behind her, eyes judging, voices sighing. What Rachel didn't see was a man watching, with a loyal German shepherd at his side. A man whose next choice would change everything. If you believe in miracles and guardian dogs sent at the perfect time, subscribe to follow more stories of hope. Winter wind swept across Nashville, Tennessee, carrying the sharp scent of cold asphalt and distant rain beneath the bright, unkind lights of a crowded budget supermarket. Inside, where heat should have brought comfort, everything felt harsh. Fluorescent lamps buzzed overhead like impatient bees, turning people into silhouettes of hurry and frustration. Rachel Evans, 28, stood in the checkout line clutching the handle of a dented grocery cart. She was a slender white American woman, not the type whose presence demanded attention. Her light brown hair, pulled into a loose ponytail, showed strands broken from stress. Her pale skin held the faint shadows of sleepless nights, and her gray-blue eyes, once full of youthful optimism, now flickered with worry every time she glanced at the price screen. Her hands trembled slightly from anxiety and cold, a nervous habit that blossomed the day responsibility became too heavy. When her boyfriend abandoned her while she was still pregnant, she learned that fear could reshape a person's spine, either into steel or into something that cracked too easily. Rachel fought every day to turn into the first. Sitting in the cart was Lily Evans, nearly 3 years old, wrapped in a faded pink coat with a hood shaped like bunny ears. Lily had her mother's eyes, bright gray with hints of sky blue, but unlike Rachel's cautious gaze, Lily's eyes were fearless. She giggled while hugging a plush penguin with one flipper missing, unaware of the storm brewing inside her mother's chest. Lily was the reason Rachel endured everything. Every long shift at the laundromat, every skipped meal, every prayer whispered into darkness. Then came the beep from the cashier's scanner. Bread, eggs, frozen vegetables, 2 jars of generic baby food. And finally, the large can of hypoallergenic infant formula that Lily desperately needed. Her digestive system rejected anything cheaper, and screams of pain always followed when Rachel tried lower-priced brands. The screen blinked a total. Too high. Much too high. Kevin, the cashier, a skinny white guy in his early 20s with acne scars and bored brown eyes, barely looked at her. Supermarkets were his battlefield. Slow customers the enemy, patience the casualty. "That'll be $32.67, he mumbled, monotone, already reaching for the next item. His name tag hung crooked, as if even it lacked motivation. Rachel swallowed hard and opened her wallet. Inside were 2 wrinkled $10 bills and a few scattered coins, everything she had until payday next week. She counted fast in her head, desperate for a miracle. None came. Heat rose behind her eyes, but she forced herself to breathe. She couldn't cry here, not in front of Lily, not in front of strangers who would judge or worse, ignore her existence entirely. I'm sorry, she whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. I need to put something back. The impatient sigh from the line behind her struck harder than any insult. A middle-aged man in a work jacket muttered something about people wasting time. A woman with perfect makeup rolled her eyes as though Rachel's hardship inconvenienced her personally. Rachel's shaking hand reached for the formula can, the one thing she should never sacrifice. But survival calculated differently when living on the edge. Shame flooded her like fire and ice. She imagined Lily crying tonight, stomach twisting in pain from the cheaper milk she'd have to buy. The thought stabbed deep enough to make her heart stumble. She pushed the can toward Kevin. "This one," she said. "I'll return this one." The moment landed like a verdict. Failure. And someone was watching. A few feet away, near a refrigerated juice display, stood Andrew Collins, a white man in his late 30s, tall with a strong but quiet presence. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, though a few rebellious strands fell across his brow. His jawline was sharp, dusted lightly with stubble that hinted he'd been too busy for self-care. He wore a simple dark gray coat, high quality yet intentionally unremarkable, because attention was something he avoided. His deep hazel eyes reflected a storm of emotions, calculation, concern, and a loneliness he tried hard to hide. Wealth had given him everything except warmth. Beside him sat Hunter, a majestic 5-year-old German shepherd, black and tan fur gleaming even under harsh lights. Hunter's ears were perfectly erect, eyes sharp amber, alert, intelligent, loyal to the bone. A former service dog trainee, he had a calm strength that made people feel safer just by being near him. Yet he too had scars. Loud noises still made his muscles tense, memory of a failed mission that cost him his spot in the K9 program. Andrew adopted him, needing saving just as much as Hunter did. The two, man and dog, witnessed the moment Rachel gave up the formula. Something shifted in Andrew. The protective instinct that once drove Hunter in training flickered to life in both of them. Rachel collected her smaller bag, head bowed in defeat, Lily hugging her penguin tighter. They walked slowly toward the sliding doors, shoulders curled inward as though trying to disappear. Andrew exhaled, a decision crystallizing inside him. He placed a hand on Hunter's back. "Let's help them," he murmured. Hunter's tail swayed once, firm and resolute. Agreement. Andrew stepped away from the juice aisle with purpose. He would not let a mother leave feeling invisible. He would not let a child go hungry. And Hunter, loyal as the beating of his own heart, trotted beside him, ready to rewrite fate, one step at a time. Tonight, hope would follow Rachel home. She just didn't know it yet. The parking lot outside the supermarket lay beneath a pale moon, wide and empty except for flickering lampposts and scattered carts rattling in the wind. Rachel Evans held Lily's tiny hand, trying to steady her own unease. She pretended bravery, because mothers must, but the night pressed heavily against her thin coat, and humiliation still burned her cheeks. Lily, bundled in pink, hummed to her wounded penguin, blissfully unaware of the fear wrapped around her mother like a second skin. Footsteps approached, slow, intentional. Rachel stiffened, turning quickly, instinct screaming caution. It was Andrew Collins, tall and composed beneath the gray winter sky. His hands were gloved, and in one of them he carried a brown grocery bag, sealing warmth and mercy up with the handles. His hazel eyes softened when they met hers, eyes that, despite wealth and power, carried a quiet ache, like someone who had lost more than he ever gained. Beside him trotted Hunter, the German shepherd, fur rippling as he moved. His stride was confident but not threatening. Instead, he exuded a gentle protectiveness, posture tall, eyes focused, as if already sworn to guard the little girl clutching her penguin. Rachel's heart pounded. Strangers rarely approached her except to judge or dismiss. She pulled Lily closer. "I don't want trouble," she said under her breath. "You don't have any," Andrew replied calmly. He held out the grocery bag. "You forgot this." "I didn't forget," she murmured, shame creeping back. "I couldn't afford it." His voice lowered, sincere and without pity. "I know, and that's why I bought it for you." Lily peered up at the kind-eyed man and then giggled when Hunter stepped forward to sniff the penguin's missing arm. She reached out and patted the dog's head, whispering, "Puppy," though Hunter was anything but small. Hunter leaned into the touch, tail brushing the ground, earning another delighted squeal. Rachel swallowed the lump in her throat. Accepting help meant accepting vulnerability, and that terrified her more than hunger. "I don't want to owe anyone," she said. "A child shouldn't cry out in pain because life has been cruel to her mother," Andrew answered quietly. "Please, think of it as one parent helping another." The sincerity in his voice chipped at her defenses. With trembling hands, she grasped the bag. "Thank you," she whispered. It felt like borrowing hope. Andrew glanced around the empty lot. "It's late. Too cold for a bus. Let me take you home." He gestured toward a sleek black sedan parked a few spaces away. A tall man stood by the passenger door. Mark Henderson, Andrew's discreet security driver. Mark was a broad-shouldered white man in his 40s, dark beard trimmed close, expression calm and disciplined. His blue eyes scanned every vehicle, every shadow. Years in private security had trained him to expect trouble even in silence. Instinct told Rachel to refuse. Vulnerability again. Unknown men again. But Lily tugged her hand, shivering. The bus stop offered nothing except wind and fear. Hunter nudged Rachel's leg with his nose as if giving reassurance. "You are safe with us." She inhaled, deep and shaky. "Okay." As Andrew guided them across the lot, Lily kept her free hand buried in Hunter's fur. Mark opened the rear door, voice even and professional. "Watch your step, ma'am." Inside, warmth embraced them instantly. Soft leather seats and the faint scent of cedar. Lily settled with wide eyes, taken by the glowing city lights beyond the window. Andrew slid into the seat beside them, removing his gloves. The interior light revealed more of him, subtle creases at the corners of his eyes, carved there by long nights of grief. There was something about him that suggested wealth had not shielded him from heartbreak, only isolated him further from ordinary joys. As the car pulled away, Rachel answered his gentle questions with caution. She worked part-time at a laundromat. She took every shift they offered. She had no family left, just a little girl who needed her. She never complained, but her voice carried the exhaustion of someone who had fought too many battles alone. She hesitated when giving her address. The rundown building on the edge of town embarrassed her. But when they arrived, Andrew didn't flinch at the cracked steps or the peeling paint. He simply offered to carry her groceries. She wanted to refuse, but exhaustion whispered acceptance. Inside the dim hallway, Hunter padded close behind, as if guarding the rear. Reaching her apartment door, Rachel fumbled with the lock. A happy squeal echoed from the living room. A white cat appeared, bounding toward them. "This is Snowball," Rachel said, wiping her eyes quickly. "She adopted us last winter." The cat rubbed against Hunter's leg, and he remained still, dignified and gentle, a good dog through and through. Rachel turned to Andrew. She faced a man who shouldn't belong in her world. Yet tonight, he did. "You've done so much," she said. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did." He smiled softly. "You trusted me." For the first time in a long while, Rachel felt something unfamiliar warming her chest. Safety. Hope. As Andrew stepped back into the hallway and Hunter followed, Rachel stood in the doorway, holding her daughter and a future she had not dared to imagine. One small act of kindness leading them toward a night no longer defined by hunger or shame. The door closed gently, but the story between them was only beginning. The following morning in Nashville, the sky wore a muted gray, as if unsure whether to promise sun or rain. In a penthouse high above the waking city, Andrew Collins stood before floor-to-ceiling windows, a mug of untouched coffee cooling in his hand. He had barely slept. The image of Rachel Evans, thin coat wrapped around her like armor, eyes struggling between pride and desperation, haunted him. And Lily, so bright and trusting despite having so little, had already carved a home inside his heart. Near his feet, Hunter rested on his belly, ears alert, as though ready to move the moment Andrew made a decision. Andrew's home, though spacious and modern, felt like a museum of success. Marble floors, polished steel, expensive art. But it lacked something alive. Laughter, toys scattered across rugs, casseroles cooling on kitchen counters. It was built to impress the world, not to comfort a soul. Since losing his wife, years of grief that had hollowed parts of him, Andrew learned how silence could echo too loudly. Hunter had arrived afterward, saving Andrew from disappearing into his own loneliness. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," Andrew said. Entering the room was David Reynolds, head of security. David was a white man in his early 50s, fit and broad-shouldered, with close-cropped graying hair and sharp green eyes. Years as an FBI agent had etched faint stress lines on his brow, but his posture radiated unbreakable discipline. Loyal, blunt, calm, he was the person Andrew trusted most. He held a thin manila folder under his arm. "I found the information you requested," David said, voice gravelly but respectful. Andrew set the coffee aside, nerves tightening. His instinct told him something bigger than sympathy connected him to Rachel, but even instincts needed proof. David handed him the folder. "Single mother, no criminal record, works part-time at a laundromat, barely scraping by." Andrew opened the first page and exhaled sharply. A black-and-white photograph stared back. A young soldier with firm eyes, loyal and proud, standing beside a muscular German shepherd in full K9 gear. Sergeant Jack Evans, Rachel's grandfather. Andrew flipped the page. There it was again. A battle report from decades ago. A name printed next to the sergeant's. Corporal Thomas Collins, his own grandfather. David continued. According to records, Sergeant Evans and his dog saved a squad trapped behind enemy lines. Corporal Collins was among them. If Evans hadn't intervened, my grandfather wouldn't have survived, Andrew finished, voice softer than he intended. The air thickened with revelation. Andrew stared at the soldier in the photograph. Fate wasn't always loud. It could be quiet, like a dropped can of formula rolling across a supermarket counter. The weight of a family debt no one remembered until now settled heavily onto his chest. David, observant as always, studied Andrew's expression. "You want to help her," he said plainly. I need to, Andrew replied, but not as charity. Her pride is strong, too strong to accept a handout. Then give her a fair chance, David suggested. Opportunity, not pity. Andrew nodded slowly. A plan began to form, clear and determined. Hunter stood up, tail rising with purpose, sensing Andrew's decision. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the city, the Evans apartment stirred awake. Rachel sat at the cramped kitchen table, hair still messy from sleep, but her eyes glimmered with something new. Hope, delicate but alive. Lily sat beside her, swinging little legs while feeding bits of cereal to Snowball, the plump white cat. The room smelled of instant coffee and baby lotion. Poor, yes, but filled with love. As Rachel reviewed job listings on her cracked phone, the memory of last night warmed her chest. Hunter letting Lily hug him without hesitation. Andrew carrying her groceries without judgment. His voice gentle when everyone else seemed cold. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello? Miss Evans? A female voice chimed, warm and polite. My name is Donna Mitchell. I work with the Veterans Community Support Center here in Nashville. Rachel sat up straight. Donna continued. We received your online inquiry for work. We would love to meet you. Are you available tomorrow for an interview? Rachel's breath caught. Donna explained the role. Assisting with administrative duties, flexible hours, room for growth. Donna briefly described herself. She was a white woman in her mid-40s, red-haired, soft-featured, and known for treating every veteran family as if they were her own. Kindness radiated even through the phone. Rachel nearly cried. Yes, I can be there. Thank you. After the call, she hugged Lily tightly. A job was not just income. It was dignity. Loneliness felt less heavy knowing someone out there believed she could be worth more. As Lily's laughter filled the apartment, Rachel didn't realize that this opportunity had come from the same man who bought her baby's milk. She thought last night was a miracle. She didn't know it was only the beginning. At that moment, in his penthouse, Andrew made his final decision. He would ensure Rachel and Lily never faced the world alone again. And Hunter, loyal as ever, let out a quiet huff of approval. The morning breeze in Nashville was gentle, brushing sunlight against tired rooftops, as though the city wanted to encourage anyone brave enough to rise early and hope. Inside her small apartment, Rachel Evans stood before the cracked mirror, smoothing the fabric of a navy blouse she had ironed 3 times. It wasn't new, but it was the best she owned. Her light brown hair was carefully pinned back to hide stray curls, and she dabbed a touch of powder beneath her gray-blue eyes to cover the fatigue of too many sleepless nights. Lily, dressed in a tiny yellow sweater, sat on the couch feeding Snowball cereal crumbs and humming a happy tune. The child's carefree joy made Rachel's heart swell and ache at the same time. Rachel picked up her phone. No new messages, no reminders of unpaid bills for the moment. Today was different. Today, she might earn a real chance. She knelt and hugged Lily, inhaling the sweet scent of baby shampoo. Mommy will be back soon, she whispered. Lily kissed her cheek, leaving a faint, sticky spot of honeyed cereal. Snowball meowed, tail flicking, as if giving his own cat approval. Their neighbor, Helen Moore, knocked at the door right on time. Helen was a white woman in her mid-60s, short and sturdy, gray hair cut in a neat bob, with warm hazel eyes that carried decades of stories from raising 3 sons alone after her husband passed in a construction accident. She was firm but loving, and she often helped watch Lily, claiming the little girl kept her young. Helen stood holding a knitted scarf she had made, pressing it into Rachel's hands. "For good luck," she said, "and to keep your neck warm. Offices can be drafty." Her voice always carried the tone of someone who had seen storms and survived. Rachel smiled with genuine gratitude and stepped into the hallway, heart pounding. Meanwhile, across the city, in a sleek downtown office building, lined with windows like polished mirrors, Donna Mitchell prepared for the interview. Donna, the woman who had called Rachel the day before, wore a burgundy cardigan, her soft red hair pinned loosely. Her freckles added warmth to her kind face, and she moved with the balance of someone naturally nurturing. On her desk lay a folder reading Evans Rachel. She had read the application twice, admiring Rachel's humble yet determined handwriting on the resume. Down the hall, Susan Blake, the program's director, sorted grant paperwork. Susan was a tall white woman around 42, sharp cheekbones softened by thoughtful brown eyes. Her dark hair was tied into a polished bun that never loosened an inch, mirroring her personality. Organized, strict, but fair. Years working with struggling families had taught her that one stroke of opportunity could rewrite a lifetime, and she believed in giving those opportunities carefully and intentionally. She straightened her blazer, reminding herself to evaluate Rachel not by sympathy, but by capability in the chief's lobby. Rachel arrived clutching her purse tightly, her breath shallow as the receptionist, a young man with kind green eyes, smiled and welcomed her. She followed him down a hallway decorated with photographs of veterans and dogs in uniform, images that reminded her of her grandfather, she barely remembered but had always admired. The sight of the K9 team photo made her pause. She thought of Hunter, the way his calm presence had made both her and Lily feel safe. She whispered a small thank you under her breath. For last night. For the stranger who had changed everything. Donna greeted Rachel with a warm handshake and introduced her to Susan. As they sat, Rachel's hands trembled slightly beneath the table, but she lifted her chin higher. She spoke about the laundromat job, her receptionist experience from years ago, and how she learned to multitask while raising a toddler alone. She didn't hide her struggles, but she didn't dwell on them either. Instead, she spoke with the quiet strength of someone who had never been given a choice except to keep moving forward. Susan noticed the way Rachel's eyes lit up when she mentioned wanting to help other families. There was no bitterness, only determination. Donna caught Susan's look and felt a surge of pride for bringing Rachel in. The interview ended with a smile from both women, and Donna walked Rachel to the lobby, promising they would be in touch very soon. Outside the building, Rachel stepped into sunlight, feeling lighter than she had in years. The air seemed brighter, the street less cracked. Maybe today was her turning point. But hope rarely came alone. Across the street, leaning against a silver SUV, stood Victoria Lane, a striking white woman in her late 30s with sleek blonde hair and cold blue eyes. Her designer coat wrapped her like armor, and her stilettos clicked like a countdown. She had been following Andrew's unusual interest in a poor single mother, a detail she considered unacceptable. She watched Rachel exit the community center with a look of satisfaction she didn't deserve. "Interesting," Victoria murmured to herself. She typed a message into her phone with manicured fingers. Operation Cut the Loose End had just begun. Rachel walked away unaware that someone had marked her, not for pity, but for envy and destruction. Nashville glimmered with evening lights as if the city wanted to celebrate someone's new beginning. Inside the Veterans Community Support Center, Warm chatter and soft music filled the main hall. A modest reception had been arranged, tables decorated with small American flags and photographs of heroic service dogs. It wasn't a grand event, but to Rachel Evans, it felt larger than life. She stood near the entrance in a simple white dress, her light brown hair falling in gentle waves. Helen had helped curl it for the occasion. Lily, in a tiny blue dress with star patterns, proudly held a stuffed version of Hunter that someone from the center gifted her. Her gray-blue eyes sparkled like dawn. From across the hall, Andrew Collins arrived with Hunter trotting confidently beside him. Andrew wore a charcoal suit tailored to perfection, but there was nothing prideful in his stance, just quiet humility. His hazel eyes softened the moment he saw Rachel. He still carried grief beneath his well-fitted clothes, yet tonight, joy had a place to sit too. Hunter approached Lily first, tail sweeping happily. Lily dropped to her knees, hugging his strong neck. Her giggle echoed like tiny bells. Andrew watched the reunion, warmth spreading beneath his ribs. Then his gaze rose to Rachel. "You look incredible," he said, voice low and sincere. Rachel blushed. She wasn't used to compliments that felt like truth. "I couldn't have been here without you," she replied. "You're here because you earned it," Andrew corrected gently. "I only held the door." The event was designed to honor families with service histories. Donna Mitchell took the stage, red hair shining under the lights. She spoke passionately about Rachel, without pity, just admiration. Susan Blake added remarks about Rachel's potential and work ethic, her polished bun nodding proudly with every sentence. Rachel's heart pounded as she was invited to speak. She stepped forward, hands trembling at the edges of the note card she never looked down at. She spoke from her soul, about struggle, about her grandfather, Sergeant Jack Evans and his loyal K-9, about fear of failing Lily, and the night she thought hope was too expensive. The room fell silent, some eyes glassy with emotion. In the back stood Victoria Lane, arms crossed within her designer coat. She had come determined to expose Rachel as undeserving. Yet as she watched the young mother's trembling voice strengthen, saw Lily's love, Andrew's pride, the sincerity stamped into every word, Victoria's judgment faltered. Her blue eyes lowered, softened by a truth she could no longer deny. She left without a word, heels clicking quietly as though leaving her schemes behind. For now, jealousy had no place here. Applause rose like a wave when Rachel finished. Lily ran into her arms. Snowball had to stay home, but his purrs were imagined in the joy of the moment. Susan and Donna hugged her like family. Andrew stood nearby, until, finally, Rachel turned to him, cheeks wet with happy tears. "Thank you," she whispered again. This time the words weren't small or scared. They were full of belief. Andrew stepped closer. "I think Sergeant Jack Evans would be proud," he said. "Not because of what happened to him long ago, but because of what you're building now." Hunter nudged Andrew's leg, tail wagging. Lily giggled as the dog bumped into her too, like a fluffy cupid pushing destinies together. Rachel laughed through her tears, and Andrew, who had once forgotten how, laughed softly too. Later, as the reception ended, they stepped outside. The sky was a dark velvet canvas of stars over Nashville. Winter was colder now, but Rachel felt warm. Andrew held out the scarf Helen had made earlier, which he had picked up from Rachel's chair. He gently wrapped it around her neck. His touch was cautious, as though asking permission to care more deeply. "When you walked out of that store, I thought you were disappearing forever," he admitted. Rachel met his gaze. "I thought that too," she said. "But then you arrived, with Hunter." Hunter sat proudly beside them, head high, the moonlight glossing his black and tan fur. He leaned against Rachel's legs just enough to show he understood, his mission no longer temporary. Lily tugged Andrew's pants. "Come home with us," she said, innocent and certain. Andrew's breath caught. He looked at Rachel, waiting. Rachel smiled, cheeks pink from more than the cold. "Would you like to join us for dinner? It's just spaghetti and juice boxes, but—" "It sounds perfect," Andrew replied, because it did. The four of them, man, woman, child, and loyal dog, walked toward a future stitched together by kindness, courage, and the simplest truth life had to offer. Sometimes, a single act of compassion isn't the ending. It is the beginning of family. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness becomes the greatest miracle in someone's life. God works through ordinary people, and even through loyal paws, to remind us that hope is never lost.